folks, my name is Rob and welcome back for another F1 Fantasy video. In today's video, I will be joined by Euan Leith, who hosts F1 Fantasy Pole Position on YouTube. Euan is a fellow YouTube content creator in the F1 Fantasy world and last season led one of his teams to a top 1K finish on the global leaderboard. Euan's a very active and involved member of the F1 Fantasy community, and as part of that, or in addition to that, he also covers F1 Fantasy for Roto Bowler. He's a writer there for this publication and has also been nominated several times for the Fantasy Sports Writers Association. So details of Euan's channels are in the description below. Be sure to show him some love. So if you enjoy what you see today, be sure to drop a like on the video. Comment down below if you'd love to see any other guests on the channel this year that are part of the F1 Fantasy space. But I'll let you enjoy the video and I'll be back with you very shortly. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm here today with Euan from F1 Fantasy Pole Position. Euan, thank you for coming on today. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for asking, mate. Yeah, thanks for having me on. Honored to be here. So glad we could get this home and home done. And yeah, it's going well. And I've been enjoying a little bit of a break from the triple header, but I'm ready to get back into some content creation and get the team back on track after a poor judgment in Jeddah on my part.
It's been a pretty testing season, I think, given how much unpredictability there's been, a lot of maybe unexpected outcomes for certain drivers and constructors. And I think you and I have probably both been put through the ringer on various occasions so far, but all in all, kind of how's the season going? What do you think, the rest of the 2025 looks like for F1 Fantasy and for your team?
I mean, after the massacre in Melbourne, where I think I collected about 4 DNFs and scored a grand total of 52 points, it's been a lot better since then. Yeah, I think I'm averaging about 2.5 million a week in budget increase since I used the wild card in China, so things are getting a little bit back on track. But yeah, I thought I was like getting ahead of the game with my Pierre Gasly move in Saudi Arabia, and then the DNF pain train hit a lot of us in the F1 fantasy community, and I also didn't move out Jack Doohan, so it kind of compounded the day for me. And I was going to bring him out for Fernando Alonso, so I was kind of seething on Sunday night a little bit.
Yeah, it's been, I feel like, a situation on several weekends where even some of the most informed decisions haven't gone the right way. And like, I look at Gasly as one of the more recent ones where a lot of people just love what they saw from him in practice. And I think he was also coming off a pretty good practice back in Bahrain as well. And I think there was just a lot of optimism and unfortunately just didn't deliver. I mean, it's probably neither here nor there who was at fault between him and Tsunoda in Saudi Arabia, but it is just, as you say, another kind of dagger in the heart when you're trying to get back on the right track. Yeah, so for those of you, again, as I said, who don't know Euan, he has his own YouTube channel and is under the moniker F1 Fantasy Pole Position. Now, Euan, before we obviously talk a bit more about F1 Fantasy in general, I've subscribed to your channel and followed you for, 3-4 years or for as long as I can remember. You've been kind of in the F1 fantasy game. I think for me, the most remarkable thing is that you've, at least in my opinion, seen quite an uptick in engagement, views, subscribers this season. What's the secret sauce? Because I feel as though there's maybe not one right answer, but we're slowly seeing the F1 fantasy community, not just the wider player base, but the content creator landscape also evolve. And so I'd love to get kind of your 2 cents on how you found the last kind of few years being in F1 fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, thanks for the compliment. Yeah, it has been a crazy kind of first 5 races for the YouTube channel. But I'd probably say just committing myself to the game and making this my sole focus in content creation. Like before, like I used to be in a previous life, I was a sports producer for NBC. So I'd cover all of these sports. I do all the Winter Olympics, I do the marathon, all this stuff. So when I kind of took a step away from that, I still had like the itch to make content. So I was covering like I was doing NFL, MLB, FPL for Fantasy Premier League, and then F1 Fantasy. And it was just, I enjoyed doing it, but I was spread so thinly amongst everything that there would be mornings at like 5 a.m. where I'd be cranking out a podcast or a YouTube thing, and I'd be like, I don't know if I did a good job. So this off season, I kind of took a step back from everything, and I was like, you know what? F1 Fantasy is the one that brings me the most joy. So I've tried to like kind of just dig deeper, bring more content, bring more like insightful, hopefully thoughtful content, and hopefully helpful content
Yeah.
to like the viewers, the commenters, and the subscribers. And people seem to be responding. Like I'm mostly like on my Twitter and stuff. I'm mostly all about F1 Fantasy. The occasional Liverpool celebration chant whenever the Reds are doing well in the Premier League. But yeah, it's just mostly just focusing on F1 fantasy content and our fantastic community that you and I share with so many of the other great content creators like are responding. It's so encouraging. It makes me want to do more content when you get that kind of response. You're like,
Yeah.
I love talking F1 fantasy. Like I'm doing this at like quarter to 10 on a Friday night in Germany. Like, I'm not entirely sure there'd be more things I'd rather do than this. This is so much
That's
fun.
Yeah, I feel very similar about it. You know, it at times feels like it's its own, maybe not full-time job, but it is a big time commitment. But again, like you say, you know, the amount of passion and satisfaction I get out of doing something that is purely just for my own enjoyment, and the fact that other people take something out of it too is, you know, so meaningful. So I echo kind of all your sentiment there, and it is just such an exciting time for the community. It's grown so much, and it's you know, got some ways to go as well. So excited for kind of what the rest of the year and beyond holds for you, me, and the rest of the F1 fantasy player base. Now, we'll circle back a bit into kind of the weeds of F1 fantasy. You alluded very briefly before on kind of how challenging the season has been at times, and I think it's not an F1 fantasy season if we don't have our fair share of DNFs, bad decisions, whatever it might be. It is at many times feeling like a luck-based game more than a strategy game, but other times it is very much also geared towards strategy. So, you know, do you want to, we're 5 races into the season, we're in between Saudi Arabia and Miami, and I'd just be curious to kind of get, you know, a kind of 100-foot view from you on how your team's gone so far this season, the strategy, the decisions. Obviously, there's been a lot of bad luck for a lot of us, but maybe even on top of that, some shining lights or silver linings as well.
Yeah, I mean, Australia was absolutely brutal. I had to laugh, otherwise I would have cried after that Sunday morning in Melbourne. It was so bad. But I learned from last year, like last year, a lot of us were doing the Red Bull and V carb strategy, if anyone remembers that. And I didn't play the wild card. I tried to build transfers, and I always kind of felt like I was playing catch up for the rest of the season last year. So in China, I just instantly was like, no, it's time to wild card. I'll take a negative 20. I'll use the wild card instead and just get the team set for what I thought was going to be the right way. And I mean, this is my own fault. Things were going so well for 3 weeks. I was like, this is great. What are we doing here? And then, yeah, Jeddah happened. I made the wrong call about, I was actually telling people, like, I don't know about Limitless and Jeddah. Like, I know the Delta, and you had, like, that excellent video, Rob, that was telling us, like, okay, this is where we need to look and stuff like that. But going into Friday practice, Saturday practice, I couldn't really tell who the second best constructor was. And that scared me off. And some people went Ferrari, some people went Mercedes, and unfortunately, some people went Red Bull. And the people that went Ferrari, they crushed it, went out of the park with it. But the people with Mercedes, people with Red Bull, like that's what I was worried about. So not having that as the right call was why I didn't go with Limitless. But Ferrari did look good in Jeddah, and they might be back on the menu for me going into Miami.
Yeah, I'm really liking the look of them. I don't think they're suddenly an objectively best second option to go with McLaren, but I do think they've got the makings of it. And you and I have talked about, you know, their pit stop strengths, and they're 2 very experienced drivers on that team. So I think, you know, if not by Miami, certainly by the time we get to Imola, they could well be front and center now. They hurt me pretty badly in China, and if you watch my videos, I'm not talking to you directly, but anyone watching these videos, or this one in particular, know I'm still not over it. But I don't think it's gonna, you know, I think it'll maybe have some implication on my end of season rank, but we're only 5 races into a 24 race season. So if anyone that has, you know, suffered through Australia, suffered through Ferrari, suffered through Pierre Gasly, or any other myriad of DNFs or disqualifications, I do continue to kind of shout that it is a long season and we've got a lot of chips to get through. And Limitless, as you alluded to, it's one that I think many of us will start throwing around the next couple of weeks if Saudi Arabia wasn't the time for it.
Yeah, just to build on that, I know a lot of teams had such good Australias that they played Limitless in China with Ferrari, and it kind of brought them back to the field. So there are up and downs throughout the entire F1 fantasy season. So even like, I think I'm like 171K in the world or whatever. There's still plenty of time, and if you're lower than that or whatever, people shouldn't give up. There's still so many swings to come in the season.
True.
It's something that makes the game great, frustrating, but we love it and we're hooked on it as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think like your point there kind of segues nicely into like our strategy and thought process around the next few weeks. And you and I, Rain, Tom, Adam, Zach, everyone in the content creator community has kind of spoken to all ends about planning for the chip, given how powerful Limitless is. And then right after that, we've got two low overtake tracks in Imola and Monaco. Has your approach kind of toed and froed over the last few weeks as to when you want to use the chip, or is it kind of fixated on one particular race? And I know in preseason a lot of people were either China or Miami, but I think the approach now has deviated a little bit from solely a sprint weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate the community kind of almost opening my eyes to how many more opportunities we have to play the Limitless. Because I mean, a sprint weekend, you've got 3 point scoring sessions, so in your brain, simple math is like, oh, that's more points, that's better. But people smarter than myself, like in the F1 Fantasy Tools Discord and all those fantastic places that you guys should be going to, like they crush it. They crush it for us. They help us out so much. I wouldn't be able to do it without them. So my thought going into Saudi was I really want to roll one transfer into Miami. And then like Pierre Gasly, he caught my eye. Je suis tenté. I tweeted it all out. I am tempted. And yeah, he bit me. But I didn't. I ended up not doing the Doohan to Bortoleto move because I was like, I really want that free transfer. Because the worst thing that can happen is that everything goes well this weekend and I just burn a free transfer at Miami. Well, as we all know, things did not go well. And now I'm going to have to use all 3 free transfers in Miami to set myself up for Imola. And I think Imola is where I'm leaning towards playing it right now. Like you were saying, low overtake track, like it's start European season, updates are coming to cars, that kind of stuff. I am a little bit worried about, I want to play the Limitless chip probably before Spain, just with that new technical directive that's coming out and the whole FlexiWing thing is going to totally shake up the grid. What are we doing here? So I'd like to get it out of the way. So if Miami goes well with the budget building, then I think it will be Imola for me, unless there's like some weird weather or something crazy kind of happens. How about you?
Yeah, I think I'm very much on the same wavelength to you. I again, up until maybe an hour before the deadline, I was very much on the same train of rolling a transfer into Miami, but the plan was to get Gasly in for Miami anyway, just because of up until that point, he looked very strong. And I thought to myself, look, why wait? Obviously we can't be predicting DNFs, like it's impossible to do. And I said to myself, look, I'm going to get him in anyway. He's a better point scoring option and a better chance of going up in value in Saudi Arabia. Why don't I just do it this week instead? And that was the logic. And the decision, it's easy to be a hindsight merchant, but I think I stand by it as the right decision. It just didn't work out. So I think for that reason, again, 2 transfers in Miami will probably just, unless we see 2 or 3 top drivers qualify outside the top 8, I wouldn't probably lean towards Limitless in Miami unless, again, we see some unexpected sprint quality surprises. So yeah, that's my approach. I was thinking about Monaco, but probably won't go down that path. So yeah, that's the plan for me personally. Have you got any other chip weekends on your mind right now, or is it probably too early to say given we have a couple later in the year?
Yeah, I've been kind of, my head has been turned a little bit by this whole final fix in Monaco thing. I did set myself up for that last year. I think I brought in Leclerc for Monaco, but I left like 8 million in the bank to get to Verstappen in case he put it on pole, which might be a more valid strategy this year because Verstappen seems to just do
anything.
He's having some amazing qualifying sessions. But yeah, nothing as of right now. I know a lot of people are getting kind of trigger happy with the 3X chip. And I would just advise people to still wait for that. Like, we can wait
Yeah.
a little bit longer, get our teams like really well set. I mean, the ideal thing would be to get Lando and Piastri in as your 3x, 2x with
Yeah.
McLaren and Ferrari, but that's going to be further down the road. So I would say people need to be patient with that. But yeah, I've already used my wild card. So I also want to be set up for Spain or Canada where I have 3 free transfers. But that's also like, if I use my 3 free transfers in Miami, I limitless in Italy. That really only gives me Monaco to build up another free transfer. And it's also looking like I'm only playing 4 transfers over the next 4 races, which is kind of scary. So I'm not
Yeah.
entirely sure how that's going to go.
No.
But if I have to push it to Canada, like watch what happens in Spain for the results and then adjust in Canada, that's not as bad either. But people with wildcard, like they could do it in Spain or Canada, and I'm pretty jealous of that.
Yeah, that's why I'm holding my wild card. I mean, again, I got lucky that Stroll and Hulkenberg in Australia came out the other side compared to a lot of people that had 3 rookies or 4 rookies in their team. But the plan for me with wildcard is either right after Limitless if Ferrari look suddenly very good and or there are other budget building options on the table, or again for the TD in Spain or around that point where the grid order is shaken up a bit. But again, I'm not trying to get more than a couple races ahead, otherwise you kind of lose focus of what's right in front of you. So speaking of that, and I want to pick your brains on the pricing model just quickly because it has been introduced this year, a new one at least, with the 3 race rolling average compared to how prices were dictated on the driver score or the constructor score each race week. Now, there is probably a point of view that favors it and a point of view that doesn't in the community. I'm probably on the side, even though there are probably tweaks to it that could be made to make it better. I actually prefer the points per million basis for pricing assets, but I haven't really spoken about it ad nauseum with any content creators. I'm just curious to get your take on it because budget building has become even more of a focus this year than I can ever remember.
Yeah, I did a like an early season hot takes episode with Zach GP a few weeks ago, and one of my hot takes was that like people are gonna like the pricing algorithm by the end of the season, and while like you were saying, like there are some tweaks that need to be made, and that might just be like from a point scoring basis, like the DNFs, and I don't think we want to go like it's already 10 o'clock here. We'll be going to midnight if we're talking about drive of the day, but we're not going to go there today. Just trigger warning for those people, but I like it. I kind of feel like it opens the entire grid up to F1 fantasy managers. Like I always
Yeah.
think about last season how so many of us, and I think you were one of the people that like we got trapped with the double Sauber Logan Sargent build for so long, and it was just
Yeah.
like unless there's 6 DNFs in a weekend, these guys are not going up in budget. I cannot get off of them. But we were also too scared to get off of the Lando McLaren Ferrari build. It's like, how am I going to get budget? And this pricing system does enable it. Like Gabriel Bortoleto, he is well in my thinking, not just for his price floor, but he has a chance to rise in Miami. Now, that means he might have a chance to fall in Imola, and I might have to deal with that a little bit later. But the fact that I don't love that it's kind of a maths problem a lot of the time as well, but it's not that bad either. I prefer it over last year's system, and it's also kind of nice to have a challenge. I was actually kind of excited. I mean, we did that whole price prediction series
Yeah.
earlier in the year, and and then like the pricing system came out. I was like,
We were so wrong.
oh my goodness, like what are we doing here? So, yeah, I kind of like the points per million. I think it's like putting people like the entire grid is up for grabs. It is
Yeah.
at certain points, but like at some point I feel like I'm probably going to own all 20 drivers at one point this year, and that was not the case in 2024 or 2023.
No, I agree. I agree entirely. I think there are probably small or subtle changes that could be made, and one I think on the Fantasy Tools Discord that's been suggested is like make the most recent race the most heavily weighted as opposed to the preceding 3 equally weighted, and maybe they change that next year, maybe they don't. Doesn't really matter, but I think there are probably small changes to improve the pricing model. But me personally, I do think it is, as you say, much better than years prior. But anyone watching this, if you've got a particular opinion on the pricing model, I think we've got a lot of different opinions in the community this year. Let us know down in the comments. So and I know this was kind of just a fireside chat for 20 odd minutes or so, getting your takes on the fantasy game, your season so far, but I had Tom on the channel in the preseason, Pot Pan Man F1, for those of you not familiar with him, And at the end of the video, and we're not anywhere close to the end, I'm just saying that now, 20 minutes in, but we did do an F1 fantasy quiz. And there are probably a few things that come out of the quiz that we may want to talk about right after while you're getting warmed up. But I do want to pitch 5 questions to you to pick your brains on how clued in you are to F1 fantasy. So for those of you watching, feel free to pause the video once every question is asked. No cheating, obviously. You and I don't even need to ask because I know you're a very trustworthy individual. But we'll go through 5 questions, anywhere between soft, medium, and hard in terms of difficulty, or easy, medium, hard. And we'll see, Euan, how much you actually do know about F1 fantasy in 2025. So are you ready to go?
I was born ready.
Love to hear it. Love to hear it. All right. Well, we'll start off with hopefully one that's not too difficult, but I will say there are a couple of tricky ones in there. Question number 1. Who is currently the highest owned driver in F1 fantasy as at the time of recording?
Whew, okay. I should know this, but there's a couple of options in my head. I know that Sainz was really popular at the beginning of the season. We all thought he was going to be banging in the performances for Williams, but I think his star has kind of faded a little bit. Yeah. I think there's enough engaged managers still roaming around, and I think this man was cheap enough more recently that he's going to be in a lot of teams. So I'm going to go with Isaac Hadjar.
Spot on. 1 from 1. We love to see it. I agree. I was looking at the ownership percentages recently, and Sainz's ownership was above 60% to start the year off because of all that Williams hype in the preseason. And as you say, his stock slided quite a bit recently. Fascinatingly, actually, when I looked at the stats a few days ago, he was 38%. He's now up to 39%. So clearly people are transferring him in between races, but it also may suggest that Williams are back on the up after that good result in Saudi Arabia. So good work there. Behrman in second, 3% below Hadjar's 56. So well done. 1 from 1. Question number 2. Who is the lowest scoring driver in F1 fantasy in 2025?
Ooh, lowest scoring driver. It's a man. I think it's who I really want to bring in. Is it Alonso?
It's correct. 2 from 2. Yeah. Well done. No, it's I think for me one that wouldn't actually be in that situation if his first 2 races weren't so bad to start the year off.
Yeah, I mean, he is. I mean, you were just talking about Gasly or Sainz, and I'm kind of thinking about buying Sainz in the next couple of weeks because he's getting so cheap right now, and that's where Alonso is right now. He's like, that's why I thought about him last week, and I got saved. I was seething on Sunday night after the Saudi Arabia race because he had gone up 0.2 according to F1 Fantasy Tools, and Doohan had fallen 0.6. But woke up Monday morning and Alonso had actually gone down 0.2. They stole it, and I was like, I feel a little bit better. I feel sad for the people that got Alonso, but selfishly for me, I was like, it's not as bad as I was hoping. No,
I think again that he'll be on a lot of people's target watch lists for Miami and beyond. I think, much like Sainz, he's probably bottoming out or getting close to that. I don't think he'll ever go down to 4.5, but I don't think Alonso's floor is much lower than what it currently is in terms of his price. So interested to see if that ownership ticks up in Miami and beyond. All right, so I think they're probably the 2 warmer-uppers, if we can call it that. We'll take the tie blankets off these questions and hopefully give you something a bit more challenging. Question number 3. What chip has been the most widely used this season according to the F1 Fantasy Tools Elite data for the Patron 500, not the Global 500?
Oh.
So six chips, and I think something to just caveat for people watching and not familiar with F1 Fantasy Tools is the Patron 500 are the engaged managers in their kind of F1 Fantasy community at F1 Fantasy Tools. So not necessarily everyone that's in the top 500 on the global leaderboard.
My first instinct is to say wildcard, but if they're in the top 500, then they probably didn't have as bad of a start as I did because I played my wildcard after the second race, but not the DRS boost. I'm trying to think. Would it be no negative in Australia? I can't tell. I'm going to go with first instinct. I'm gonna say wild card, but I'm not entirely sure if that's right.
I mean, I think that was my first guess when I thought of the question, but it's in fact Limitless.
What?
Because after Saudi Arabia,
Oh.
13.7% of patrons activated that chip, or many of which are, much further ahead on the leaderboard. But Limitless usage 24.8 and Wildcard 22%. So you got very close, but it is, it's
That's okay. That's why they're in the top 500. So
Yeah.
good job by them. And I'm not anywhere. I might not be close to the top 5,000 in that league, so I don't know.
Look, I think, neither. You're on the right track though, because no other chips above 6% aside from Wildcard and Limitless in the Patron 500. So,
All right.
yeah, almost there. Question number 4. The driver of the day, we were talking about it before, has been a very polarizing topic in Formula One fantasy this season, and it has been for the last few seasons. Who was the last driver to win the Driver of the Day award, not from the Big Four?
Not from the Big Four. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I know. Oh no. I was gonna say Danny Rick, but he stole the fastest lap from Lando in Singapore, and I can't remember if he won Driver of the Day that day. Oh, the last driver to win.
You thought it was going to be who won Driver of the Day in Saudi Arabia.
Oh God, I know. Man, my gut is gonna say.
I'd say, think no later than Singapore.
I think no later than Singapore.
Sorry, as in like no further back than Singapore.
No further back. Yeah. Ah, man. I don't think it was Danny Rick. So did he win? No, he won fastest lap. He stole it from Lando, and there's a whole controversy. I'm trying to make this good for YouTube, so there's not a bunch of dead space, and I can't think.
That's all right.
It's gonna be. I'm gonna come out of left field and say that it was K-Mac.
Close, but no cigar. It was actually Zhou in Qatar. When he scored points for Sauber, their only points last season. So that was a tricky one, I admit. Because
that was good. You got me.
Because it is one of those ones where you wouldn't expect it. And for the Big Four, I was looking at the statistics. Maybe I gave it away for some people watching at home. But when I said no further back than Singapore, Ricardo and Zhou are the only two drivers in all of last season and the first 5 races of this season to have not been from the Big Four to win Driver of the Day. So it's clear that the top 4 teams have a monopoly over that award.
Okay.
Okay. And the last one, which hopefully will be a bit more straightforward. I wouldn't overthink about this one too much. But Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri have been the 2 most widely used drivers for the 2X DRS boost in 2025. Can you name the 3rd most used?
The 3rd most used 2X driver in F1 fantasy. Man, I mean, I want to say Max, but there's part of me that's like Antonelli was popular in China. I mean, I used him. I got bailed out by that driver.
You did, didn't you?
Speaking of driver of the day, I'll probably not be able to sleep tonight if I say someone else and it's not Max, because that seems absurd. It could be Russell. I'm gonna say Verstappen, but it's only right because if I can't be tied with Tom. Tom's the GOAT, so it would be. But yeah,
you're correct, Max Verstappen.
Let's go!
You lock in your 3rd correct answer of the quiz. So you tie with Tom. 3 out of 5, I'd say, is a commendable points finish in F1 Fantasy or the F1 Fantasy quiz. So curious to see what other people's answers were. I know there were a couple of really tricky ones in there, but I also wanted it to make. I wanted to make it a little challenging because there's nothing
It
less
was
interesting
great.
than.
I learned something that Joe Guan Yu is still haunting me from the reserve driver role in Ferrari. So
Well, yeah, well done. That's 3 out of 5. So very, very commendable result. Um, but yeah, I guess before we wrap up, is there any other kind of thoughts you've got for the season ahead? I mean, there was one question actually I did want to talk about, but we didn't get to it. But kind of, you covered it in your video recently with Luke, who's another F1 fantasy content creator, around some drivers that have obviously been disappointing this season. But for the next kind of 3 to 5 races ahead, are there any drivers that you think can really, it doesn't even have to be like template assets, drivers that you think can really kind of put their case forward as a really good fantasy driver or constructor, just in terms of production?
yeah, I mean, we already talked about him a little bit here, but I am keeping an eye on Carlos Sainz over the next couple of weeks. Like, it's the first time he beat Albon out on track. It's the first time he like legitimately scored points in Saudi Arabia. He scored points in China, but we know with the 3 DSQs how that went down. So yeah, Sainz is definitely on like my watch list. Hopefully by Monaco, it might be kind of tough with the way that I'm gonna structure my team for this Limitless chip, hopefully in Imola. But Monaco, Spain, we'll see how Williams get on. But yeah, Sainz is on the list. I'm hopefully going to keep Hadjar on my team for a while. Racing Bulls did maybe take a tiny bit of a step back in Saudi, or it may have been Williams took a step forward and stuff. But also Liam Lawson is on my mind. A lot of the commenters I had from my team selection video were like, "Hey, you're like really fixated on Alonso, but like, what about Lawson?" And they were right. Like Lawson does need to kind of enter my thoughts a little bit more. I've kind of written him off, but I saw some reports from the Racing Bulls garage that they were like Liam was like broken when he came over here, and like Saudi was kind of the first time that we saw old Liam back. So it's such a mental sport that like those things we do need to think about that kind of stuff as F1 fantasy managers. So Lawson and Sainz are kind of entering my long-term thoughts, and Lawson might come into my team in Miami actually.
Who would have thought that LL wasn't, and it's not Limitless, that's on the menu for Miami. So it's, yeah, I think, yeah, Lawson for me too, very affordable, 6.6 if I can recall correctly. I think again, yeah, it's all about just having that confidence, and I feel as though Saudi Arabia was a step in the right direction after a pretty rotten few races to kick the season off. So, yeah, Lawson for me. I also echo Sainz. I think Williams will feature, whether it's Albon or Carlos Sainz, feature in my team in the next few races. I think Sainz, as you say, though, he's kind of on the downward in his price, so hopefully we can pick him up at a bit of a discount over the next few races. The other one for me that, you know, again, I think kind of ebbs and flows, and I'm just really bummed about Gasly's result in Saudi Arabia. I've just loved what I've seen from him the last couple of weekends, and then we saw how fast he was in the back stages of last season too. So it's a bit of a frustrating thing to most likely transfer him out after one race, but he's someone that for me could be best of the rest if that car looks good. So yeah, Euan, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate, you know, all of the contributions to not just the video today, but the community this season. I think for anyone who watches your content, I think it goes to show you've probably stepped it up the most out of everyone who makes YouTube videos. So very much grateful to kind of pick your brains on F1 fantasy. Can you tell everyone watching where they can find you? The description will have all of your links to your socials, as will the video itself. But if you want to just take 30 seconds to fill everyone in on where they want to follow you.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the compliment of the YouTube videos. It probably means that I have the worst social life out of all the content creators that I'm able to put that much time in, but that's okay. I'll take it. I'll take it. But yeah, thanks for having me on the show, Rob. This has been fantastic. I'm so glad I got 3 for 5 match Tom. That was really the most thing I was most nervous about coming on here. But yeah, everybody can find me on X, TikTok sometimes, Blue Sky, F1 Fantasy Euan, and then on YouTube, F1 Fantasy Pole Position. And then I put out a race preview and a predicted finishing order each Grand Prix on rotoballer.com, where we're doing some F1 fantasy content over there as well. But yeah, thanks for having me on, Rob. It's been super fun.
Yeah, it has been. It really has been. And really, as I said, excited to see how the remainder of the season goes for both of our teams trying to claw back from a bit of a points and rank deficit to start the year off. So Euan, thanks again. Really excited to see how the channel and your page continues to grow. And again, thank you for joining me. So guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. This is, as I said at the start, part of my guest interview series on the channel this season. So throw a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments below if there are other guests in the F1 fantasy community you'd love to see on the channel this season. In the meantime, I will be back with my usual videos in the lead up to the next Grand Prix. So stay tuned for those. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all very soon.